Well, hello there. Alyssa Orange here with you, joined by DJ Williams, former Razorback, and Philip Butterfield, a former Arkansas State quarterback, to talk about the big news today, which is the fact that Arkansas and Arkansas State announcing that they will play on the football field on September of 2025. I know a lot of people around the state of Arkansas are excited to hear this news. We are going to be streaming Hunter Yurichek's press conference here at 2 o'clock. So in about 6 minutes or 5 minutes or so, when he jumps on that press conference, we will take you there. But DJ Phillip, let's talk about the news. DJ, I know we've heard your reaction, but again, when you heard the news, what did you think?
I was surprised. I didn't think this would happen. Now they've put their toe in the water when it comes to other sports, baseball, basketball, but football, the big one. As far as Arkansas sports is concerned, I didn't think that this would happen. Just on a business standpoint and a program management standpoint, I would love to hear Philip's take on this, but I hate to say it. When you look at these two schools, Arkansas has absolutely nothing to gain by playing this game outside of potentially having an in-state rivalry. But as far as if they win, they're supposed to. If they lose, it's the biggest deal in the world. A State on the other end. If they win this football game, it'll be the biggest win in program history. A program changing win. If they lose, then it's kind of back into the whole thing. Like, oh, see, now we knew what was gonna maybe eventually happen. So
Yeah.
that's from my perspective. But like I said, I'm very fascinated to hear what Philip would say. I'm sure they had those conversations in their locker room talking about, man, we could take on the Hogs. They didn't look that good. We're playing these teams that they're barely beating, and we're competing. It was just a conversation that never really happened in the locker room, at least from the team that I was on playing with Razorbacks.
Yeah, Philip, you bring a completely different perspective.
Absolutely, and thanks again for having me. Definitely an exciting moment for ASU and the entire program. To kind of think back, whenever I was playing, we obviously did consider that and wish it could have happened whenever we were playing. I wish DJ and I could have played against each other, but obviously it's still a lot of fun to watch the guys as a fan. So it's an exciting moment for both programs.
I know that Arkansas State has played other big Power Five teams before. You've had a few upsets as well, Philip. But what do you think that this means for Arkansas State fans?
You know, you're right. And kind of thinking back, there were a couple big wins. I think it was back in 2008. We beat Texas A&M down in Texas. Uh, this past year, we beat Kansas State. But this would be I guess, a really special moment for us, just because we are playing I mean, obviously a storied SEC program, an in-state program that a lot of us are familiar with.
This game is also getting taken place at War Memorial Stadium, and we're continuing to keep an eye on Hunter Yurichek's press conference, the Arkansas athletic director, when he talks about the changes that are going to come to War Memorial Stadium and the schedule there. But this is kind of, neutral playing field for both of these teams in terms of you're going to be able to really represent Arkansas State and really represent the Arkansas fan base, DJ.
Yeah, and me just being from Little Rock, I'm obviously biased. I think that game would be awesome at War Memorial Stadium. But like I said, the impact that it does have on the state, this could be something that would be very good because you look at these other schools that have these in-state rivalries. They're so fun to watch, especially on TV. You get so into them. But then you just look at the aspect, do you start taking away the perks that these smaller schools get for playing big schools? Like, do we pay Arkansas State? You know what I mean? If they really want this game and for it to be a rivalry and be an even playing field. But and then once again, you start thinking about, what's to gain and what's to lose. And I think Phil will say the same thing, that obviously if Arkansas wins, everybody says, okay, yeah, they're supposed to. But I will say, when he said he would love to play DJ, this is what the only good thing I could see coming out of this. Instinctively, the competitor in me said, he don't want that smoke. I said, your team, my team,
DJ.
that's the competitive edge of what I think would be awesome to see from this game. Just two teams that would just hate each other
Yeah.
and would look forward to that game each and every year. I think the state would just love it.
Yeah, I think you make such a great point. And Philip, I mean, look, like you've got guys who play together on high school football teams in Arkansas, and some of those kids go to A State and some of those kids go to Arkansas, but there's never really been able to be any trash talking between the two. And here you go opening up that door where you guys are going to be playing against each other on the football field.
Oh, you're spot on. The state of Arkansas has a long history of loving the game of football, from the Pee Wee leagues to high school and to the college teams. So this will only grow with that.
I know we're talking about War Memorial, and that's the focus because beggars can't be choosers, and this is going to happen in 2025. But for both of you guys, how would you feel if this became a home and home? If it was played in Fayetteville and in Jonesboro and maybe War Memorial, and it rotated every 3 years?
I mean, it would just be once again good for each program to whichever game that it's at. I personally think having a neutral site each and every year, that's what made the LSU game so special, in my opinion, was that when they played Arkansas, the game was going to be at War Memorial Stadium. It's just a different feel, a different kind of crowd. I think it's just more of like when you play a game there, it's almost like a gift. Hey, this is for the state of Arkansas, right? I can't think of a better venue for that to happen.
What do you think, Phil?
And I'd agree. I think if they started selling tickets right now, even 4 years before the game, you'd start seeing those tickets sold out pretty quickly.
What do you think is going to be the focus now as we move forward? Because clearly, with this announcement, and UAPB in Arkansas will play at War Memorial Stadium this upcoming year, and they're also going to be able to play some other games and some other non SEC games. Arkansas will at War Memorial as we continue to move. How would you like to see War Memorial utilized when it comes to in-state rivalry games? With Arkansas State, with UAPB. You could add UCA, down the road if you wanted to.
I think it's just the history of War Memorial Stadium and that feeling like the people are just different down there. You know what I mean? When I played with Houston Nutt, he would be like, boys, you get used to this Northwest Arkansas crowd. They're all night, but I'm saying these guys down in Little Rock, they're a little weird now. They love the Razorbacks a lot different. And so it's just a special moment. And the cool thing about it is you don't need all the bells and whistles at War Memorial Stadium. Maybe softer turf, but they took care of that. But besides that, it's just more of like, take all the makeup off. Let's just play football the way it's supposed to be played here at a stadium that's not like these big ones across the country. We're just here to play the game of football. And like I said, if there had to be a game there every year, I can't think of a better opponent, and it hurts me to even say this, than playing ASU. I think that'd be. I think the tailgating would be insane.
Always the
I'd agree.
always the tailgating. Yeah. Philip, DJ and I obviously do a lot of talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks. And again, I'm continuing to check with Hunter Yurchek. And when he pops up there, we will pop you to him. But, Philip, you have seen this program continue to get national spotlight, continue to be a force in the Sun Belt. Now you have a new head coach in Butch Jones. And so how do you feel this program is continuing to rise?
I'm extremely excited about it. A lot of people remember the name Ryan Applin as being kind of the quarterback of the ASU team that it took us from to the bowl level. And whenever we started bowl games, winning conference titles, and he's actually back at ASU right now as a running backs coach. So I feel like there's a lot of a lot of animosity or
Sure.
a lot of built up feelings looking
All right.
forward
Yeah,
to the
no,
game
Philip,
going
I hate
forward.
to cut you out, and I appreciate your insight. But Hunter Yurchek just jumping up, so I am going to take you to his press conference and hear what he has to say.
Is a significant story across our state. Just a little bit of background on how this all came to be. After the season, Coach Pittman and I sat down to talk about the future of our football program. One of the aspects of that is scheduling. And one thing that he made abundantly clear to me during the course of that meeting, that it was very important to the future success of our program to play as many SEC games as possible here on campus in Fayetteville. Shortly thereafter, I reached out to Secretary Hurst and just started to have some very informal discussions with her about what it might look like if we were to move our Missouri games out of Little Rock and back on campus. And those conversations kind of heightened a little bit after the holidays and after she had a chance to talk to some of her constituents there in Little Rock. And she was unbelievable and understanding what we're trying to build with our football program here at the University of Arkansas and what we need to be successful. And so I want to thank Secretary Hurst for her understanding and really helping bring this together. One thing she made abundantly clear is if the Razorback football program was going to continue to have a presence in Little Rock or Memorial Stadium, that she thought they needed to be meaningful games. And as we started talking about what meaningful games look like, obviously in-state competition, starting with our game versus University of Arkansas Pine Bluff this year, again in 24, and then working towards that game with Arkansas State in 25, or what her and I determined were meaningful games there at War Memorial Stadium. I want to thank Terry Mahajer at Arkansas State. When I reached out to him a few weeks back, he had a game in 2025 versus Texas A&M that was under contract that he had to work to move. And so thanks to Terry, thanks to Chris Peterson at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff for their willingness to move their games in 21 and 24 from Fayetteville to Little Rock. And I want to also thank Chancellor Steinmetz and the Board of Trustees for their support during this process. And I want to be clear that this decision had no other motivation than what is best for the Arkansas Razorback football program. And I never had the opportunity to work with or get to know, obviously, John Barnhill or Frank Broyles and the decisions that they made not to play in-state competition. And it's no disrespect to either one of those two and the decisions they made. I am sure they made those in what they thought was in the best interest of the Razorback athletic program at that point in time in our history. And we would not be sitting where we are today having the success that we are as an athletic program without their leadership and decisions. But I felt like the timing is right as we opened up in-state competition with their sister schools in several sports 2 years ago to continue through this pandemic with many of our sports competing against Arkansas State and Central Arkansas. And then obviously it just makes sense at this point in time to enter into that football game with Arkansas State in 2025. So with that, I will stop, and Kyle, you can open up for questions.
Thanks, Hunter. Tom, you want to get us started?
That would be wonderful. Thanks for doing this, Hunter. What was the icebreaker on the Arkansas State series? Because that's kind of been the one that people had talked about, but maybe wasn't as feasible. And then from a broader perspective, do you feel like going beyond 25 that this could become an annual thing in War Memorial against in-state teams?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's just 2025. It was a challenging enough hurdle to get to 2025, Tom, but I think the icebreaker is Terry Mahajer and I have been friends for a while. So we were able to communicate and work through this. And I think the support that Chancellor Steinmetz I received from him and from our board and some of the behind the scenes things that they did to help make this happen. I think we've proven in competition in other sports that, with their baseball program, playing our sister schools, playing Little Rock. We actually lost our first game to Little Rock, but we still went on to the College World Series that year, and we still have top recruiting classes. And things didn't fall apart across our state because the Razorbacks were competing against other schools within the state. And so I think just as we talked about a few years ago, we were going to dip our toe in the water with our sister schools. And I think the timing was right to continue to expand what that looked like for competition with our in-state schools.
Okay. And Governor Asa Hutchinson, what was his influence on all this, would you say?
Governor Hutchinson and I had a conversation about this. Obviously, this is significant enough within our state that was not going to be a decision that was not made without at least discussing that with him. So he was very supportive.
Dudley?
When you look at there's been so many debate and stuff about having games in Little Rock and having more in Fayetteville. Talk about wanting to keep some of those games in Little Rock and this becoming a way to maybe make it even more special down there.
Well, the one thing I've learned about the state of Arkansas, Dudley, since I've been here is that the Razorbacks are spread throughout this state, and our presence across this state is very, very important. There's not another major professional sports franchise. It's not another Power 5 franchise. We have a presence in Central Arkansas. Our baseball team is there on an annual basis. In a normal year, our men's and women's basketball teams would be competing there. It's important for our football team to be there as well. But those other sports compete in non-conference competition, not in SEC competition. The baseball stadium over there is traditionally sold out. The basketball arena, the last time our men's team was there, was sold out. And I think once our football program gets to where I know Sam Pittman is going to bring it, that War Memorial Stadium will be sold out for these games as well.
Nate?
Yeah, Hunter, as far as War Memorial, it wasn't just basically a must if you were going to play the SEC games up here to have the in-state games down there?
Nate, I believe so. I think when you talk about what are meaningful games in Little Rock, if you're not going to play SEC games there, you have to look at your future football schedule. And I think meaningful games is those in-state games with Arkansas Pine Bluff and with Arkansas State.
Also, as far as Missouri, were they pretty amenable to moving back up here to Fayetteville?
Missouri didn't really have a choice in that. That was it's our home game, so we can play that back in Fayetteville. But I did communicate with their AD about that. But yes, they were amenable. Nate,
They get a larger split, don't they? But if they play it at Fayetteville.
No, they don't. It's our home game, and we had to get permission to move our home game to Little Rock, and they had agreed to that, and they were okay with moving it back to Fayetteville.
Thanks.
Trey Biddy?
Yeah, Hunter, I polled Arkansas fans what they thought about the Arkansas State game, and 64% of them want to see the game played, but the other third are concerned. And I think going back, historically, that Arkansas doesn't have anything to gain by playing this game. If they lose, it diminishes the standing as the top school in the state. What do you say to fans who, because it is a large majority, it's not the majority, but it is a large percentage that feel that way?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to the competition that we've seen in our other sports, and we lost one of those games, a baseball game, and it didn't hurt our recruiting in the state for our baseball program. It didn't hurt us advancing to the College World Series. I don't see that as being the case. I mean, yes, we could lose that game, but we're still going to be the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. We're still going to be a member of the Southeastern Conference. I think we will still dominate the state in recruiting with other in-state schools in all of those sports. I mean, we play other Sun Belt schools, Trey. Arkansas State's a member of the Sun Belt Conference. It's a great football conference. You talk about Louisiana, Central Carolina, Arkansas State, App State, and what they've done as a football conference. And, we've got Georgia Southern on our schedule this year. We're supposed to play Louisiana Monroe. So I look at Arkansas State just as another Sun Belt Conference school, and we're going to play two group of five schools every year, whether it's from the Sun Belt Conference USA, the Mid-American, the American or the Mountain West, and Arkansas State falls into that category. And I think what's been pretty cool is that there's been a great deal of attention across our state on college football in February. And I think that's what shows what this game is going to mean to people across the state, whether you're a Razorback fan or whether you're a Redwood fan. It's going to be a pretty cool atmosphere in September of 2025.
Do you have any information on the financials of it, like the split in terms of seating, how much Arkansas State will get and how much they're getting paid?
I'm not going to provide the exact figures because we're still negotiating contracts with some other schools, but there's a split of a cash guarantee as well as some tickets that would equal to a normal cash contract that we would do with the fellow Sun Belt school.
Hutch?
Yeah, Hunter, I'm not sure if you're able to answer this right now, but I mean, even whether it's against Arkansas State or UAPB or anything, do you anticipate continuing to play in War Memorial beyond 2025?
And I will tell you, our presence in Central Arkansas is important across all of our sports. And, we work on more of an annual basis with men's and women's basketball and baseball, and we're scheduled out now through 25 in football. And we'll just continue to evaluate what's best for our athletic program. And if it's best for our program to continue to grow, to be in Central Arkansas, we'll continue to be in Central Arkansas.
Bob? Bob, we'll come back. Hayden?
Hey, Hunter, thanks so much for doing this. Just a quick question of what's your phone like right now? How much has it been blown up? And has the historical significance of today kind of dawned on you yet? Or I know you're looking at it as just another Sun Belt game, but at the same time, this is a big deal to a lot of people, and just knowing that you're going to be the AD that finally gets to see these two teams on the field. Just kind of wondering how you felt about that.
Well, Hayden, first and foremost, I hope I'm still here in 2025 and get to see these two teams actually on the field. I think that would be great. But I will tell you that I've gotten several text messages since this release, and every single one of them is going to be positive. Maybe that those are going to send me negative text messages, don't have my cell phone number. But, I think it's I don't know if we're breaking down barriers, but I think it's been really neat across some of our other sports. I have a grid of the 19 sports we sponsor and the other 4 in-state Division I schools and how many times we played in the last 2 years. And it's starting to fill up green. If you go back and do some of the research, whether it's track and field, cross country, baseball, our women's soccer team is going to play Arkansas State twice this year. It's pretty cool to see our in-state schools competing against the Razorbacks.
Bob?
Yeah, Hunter, can you hear me?
I can, Bob.
Okay, good. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. I think Nate set my laptop up or something. But hey, do you anticipate playing, the in-state schools on a regular basis in the future?
I really only work with our coaches, our football coach on football schedule, and all of our other coaches handle their schedules individually. But they all have the wherewithal to schedule in-state schools as they see fit. And I think as we look at more regional scheduling that's both efficient for cost and travel and things of that nature, I think you will continue to see that moving forward.
And when it comes to, board of trustees, boosters, movers and shakers, did you get any pushback on this from anybody that said, oh, don't do this, don't play ASU? Was there any resistance from anybody that matters?
There were people that had varying opinions to mine about how we should move forward, but not to the point where they wanted to put their foot down and say this absolutely cannot happen. Yes, there were people that disagreed with me about was this the right decision, but nobody that felt strong enough in their conviction about this that they were going to make sure it didn't happen.
Otis.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Hunter. But on the, how much did the COVID, the financial hits you guys took this year with the COVID and everything, how much did that play into trying to get that Missouri game up here? In addition to say I'm wanting it up here, but how much did all that play into the financial situation?
Otis, I wouldn't be telling you the truth if I didn't tell you that obviously the finances of having another SEC game versus potentially having an FCS game here are not significant, but the number one driver was the competitive advantage that Coach Pittman believed it has for his football program for us to play SEC games here on campus.
Nikki?
Yeah, Hunter, you guys have, these world-class facilities up in Fayetteville. I guess a lot of people wonder, War Memorial might not be as flashy. So are there renovations that might be coming down the pipeline or just any upgrades that fans might get excited about having the Hogs play there?
Well, I don't know about the fan amenities, Nikki, but I can tell you that they installed a new turf last year. They renovated the visiting team locker room. They were in the process of renovating the home locker room in preparation for the Missouri game this year. So they'll be ready for the Pine Bluff game. Other than that, from a fan amenity standpoint, I don't know what their plans are for the golf course that surrounded that. That was a big tailgating spot. But I can tell you that they've made a concerted effort to improve the student athlete amenities within War Memorial Stadium.
Let me know if you've got more questions in the chat. Dudley?
Obviously, you mentioned the competitive advantage for Coach Pittman. Obviously, since the end of the year, he's changed up his staff a little bit. Just talk about, maybe the excitement of him filling that out and getting into the next season.
Yeah, that was part of our kind of staff and the staff he put together as a first-time head coach. And he felt as he had an opportunity to work alongside his full-time assistants and people along his staff for a full year, that there needed to be some changes made. And him and I worked together to figure out how financially to make that work so he could put together some changes to his staff. And we're excited to get those new coaches here and joining our staff. And I think having an opportunity to meet them, that it is definitively a better fit for our program, and look forward to seeing them on the field coaching our student athletes here this spring.
Trey Schapp.
Hey, Hunter, I'm curious as to what the reaction by Terry Mohajir was when you finally made that call to him to say, hey, it's done, we're going to do it.
I mean, obviously for Terry and the Arkansas State program, that this is a big deal. It's something that from the day I arrived, Terry, or the day really quite honestly that I was announced, because Terry and I have been friends, that he's been kind of knocking on my door to make this happen. And so obviously he was very excited, and he had to, it's not easy to move football games, and Terry had to move a football game with Texas A&M, find them another opponent. So he had to put in some significant time and effort to make this happen. And I'm very appreciative to him for that. But Trey, he's very excited, obviously.
Hutch.
Hunter, you mentioned that the main factor in this was that Sam wanted more home games, SEC home games in Fayetteville. Would that apply also to the Texas A&M game? Do you anticipate that being moved back to Fayetteville whenever that contract expires? And if so, could you envision playing other maybe non-conference games at AT&T Stadium?
Yeah, what I will tell you is Ross Bjork and the folks at Texas A&M have made it abundantly clear that when the contract is over with AT&T Stadium, that they would like to see those games back on campus following the 2024 season. We would be next in line in the 2025 season to have the Texas A&M game back here on campus. And so our home game is this year as well as in 23. So if you look at our schedule over the next 5 years, we have 20 SEC home games. 18 of those will be played here in Fayetteville. The 2 that will not will be the 2 we play in Dallas at AT&T Stadium against A&M. And then after that, I foresee those games moving back on campus. Now, whether we play some non-conference games, kind of those kickoff classics, things of that nature at other venues like an AT&T Stadium in the future, I think that's a definitive possibility. Whether that happens over the course of a 10-year agreement, again, probably doubtful.
Trey Biddy.
Yeah, Hunter, I was wondering where you are right now in terms of finding the, I guess it was associate AD in terms of name, image, likeness, where you are in that process. What's your level of excitement for the announcement that the NCAA video game is coming out? And are you a PlayStation guy or an Xbox guy? And what's your handle?
Well, Trey, I'll answer the last one first. I mean, since we have a PlayStation in our house, I would say I'm a PlayStation guy, but I do not play video games. I don't have time. And my younger son, Brooks, would just, it wouldn't be even a contest. He would whip me pretty good. I will be honest, the EA Sports announcement kind of caught us a little bit off guard, and would prefer that they had waited till we had ironed out the name, image, and likeness piece as an NCAA before they announced that. We knew that was coming. The announcement, quite honestly, caught us all in college athletics a little off guard with its timing. As far as the position goes, that closed the Friday the week before last. John Fagg is leading that search, and I know they've narrowed the field down to a few candidates that we will visit with by way of Zoom in the coming weeks. And we hope to have that person here on campus sometime in March to early April at the latest.
Last one, Russell.
I just want to get your thoughts on the UConn win last week for Coach Neighbors and the job that he's doing here building that women's program.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. And I think I joked about it maybe the last time we talked. I mean, when he reached out and said, Vanderbilt's going to shut their season down, we've got an opportunity to fill a void with them. I want to play UConn. I thought, quite honestly, he was kidding that he wanted to trade Vanderbilt for UConn, but he did. He was serious. And, our women played at Georgia. They lost a tough game on a buzzer beater on Monday. They had to bounce back and play that game on Thursday. We had some COVID issues that came up on Thursday morning. Quite candidly, we had to sit some people out, and he just worked through all of that adversity and did an incredible job preparing our girls to play a great game and he's just doing a great job building our program. When I first arrived, he liked to determine that we were in the SEC South, which he said was the bottom, and we were going to make it to the SEC Midwest, and then we're going to be in the SEC North, which, even in spite of you look at our losses this year, all against top-rated teams. Maryland, outside of our conference, I think is in the top 10, and everybody else is in the top 20. And I think it proved the fact that what we were able to do with the UConn game on Thursday, how tough the SEC is in women's basketball.
All right, that'll wrap us up. Hunter, thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, everyone.
Jay.
Thanks.
Well, hello and welcome back. That was Hunter Yurachek's press conference on the new additions to War Memorial Stadium, but most importantly, the fact that Arkansas will be playing Arkansas State in 2025. We are going to end our live broadcast on television, but Mike Irwin and I are going to continue the conversation over on our website and Facebook pages. So join us there if you would like to continue the conversation with us. Thanks so much for watching. And so, Mike, you got to sit here and listen to what Hunter Yurachek just said in those press conferences. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, there was an explanation for this, and before he talked, we didn't know for sure. The main impetus for this was Sam Pittman, apparently. I had felt like maybe it was the outcry of the fans because we'd heard a big negative reaction when the schedule was released from the fans about why do we only have 2 SEC home games, but according to Hunter Yurachek, that really all started with a meeting he had with Sam Pittman after the season was over, where Pittman said, look, we can't be competitive in the SEC playing 2 games in this arrangement every other year. We're going to have 2 SEC games. We've got to do something about it. So obviously you have the logical thing is to take that UAPB game, move it to Little Rock, because there would be interest in that there, but that wouldn't be enough. What would you have to do with the War Memorial Stadium Commission if you want to say to them, we no longer want to play SEC games there? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the compromise they came up with. I think the War Memorial people said, hey, you got to give us some good games. The Arkansas State game came up as a result of that. Now, the interesting thing is, would it continue? And we didn't get a definitive answer on that. But Hunter Yurachek, pretty much if you read between the lines, I got 2 things out of what he said. That this will probably continue to play games in War Memorial will happen even after 2025. And yes, they will probably play Arkansas State in the future. Might not be at War Memorial. It might be a thing where you move it to Fayetteville because it would be a big draw for a non-conference game. You could probably fill the stadium. My guess is it wouldn't be an every year thing, but it might be an every 2 or 3 year deal. Would have to be worked out, but that's what I got out of that press conference. We know a lot more about this now than we did before he talked.
He mentioned as we focus on the Arkansas State scheduling in 2025, he was asked, there are some fans who feel like there's nothing that Arkansas gains out of this and everything Arkansas State gains out of this. And he mentioned that, look, we've played other Sun Belt schools in the past, and he's right about that. The other thing is, though, there's a giant difference between an Arkansas in the name of the team you're playing than just a Georgia State or an App State or another non-Power 5 opponent like that.
Yeah, well, now we're getting into this whole business of why Frank Broyles, and it really started with John Barnhill before him, and why they never wanted to play games like this. I would say that neither one of them wanted to play in-state teams on any kind of regular basis. Whether they would have done it at all, I think their attitude was, if we do it once, we'll probably do it some more. The only way you're ever going to know the impact of something like that is to do it. Now, Hunter Yurachek pointed out, well, we've already done it in baseball. Didn't hurt us in baseball. Okay, but football is not baseball. It's different. And what I would say about playing Arkansas State, especially if you start playing them every 2 years, 3 years, whatever, or certainly if it was every other year, beyond 2025, you're only going to know the impact of that when it happens. But as far as Arkansas has nothing to gain out of that, I agree with that. You're not going to elevate yourself by playing them. They just become another opponent, but a much more committed opponent than other Sun Belt teams that you would play. They're going to be coming at you in ways that those other Sun Belt teams aren't. And they definitely benefit. it legitimizes them more. It raises their program up. They may be a non-Power 5 conference school, but this now, by playing them, this puts them on more on your level. Now, does that allow them to, get more support in state? Does that take away from Arkansas's fan base? I don't think it does anything as long as your program is winning. The solution to that thing is just to win games, and you're going to have your fans. If Arkansas is struggling and you play them and they beat you, then that could definitely be a problem, and you might lose some of your fans to them. I'm looking down the road. Now, would you lose in-state athletes? That's the other thing I think they were worried about. That's definitely possible. Because let me throw out a scenario here. Let's say you play them 3 times in 6 or 7 years, every other year, whatever you do. Let's say you win all 3 of those games and you blow them out. You're gonna. Some kids growing up in this state people always identify with. There's a certain number that always identify with the underdog, and they might watch that game and go, like this Arkansas State, they lose. I want to help them win. I'm from Northeast Arkansas, or I'm closer to that. I'll stay there. So it could affect recruiting somewhat like that by playing them. Whereas if you didn't play them at all, it wouldn't come up. But there's no way to know any of this until it happens.
Yeah, and I think that's what's the exciting part, is waiting for 2025 to get here so we see how this matchup looks. And again, you've got Sam Pittman, who is heading into his 2nd year at Arkansas as the head coach. You've got Butch Jones, who just took over Arkansas State. So we don't even know what these programs obviously are going to look like in 4 years down the road.
Oh, absolutely. Under your check saying, I don't even know if I'll be here, when that happens.
He hopes he's still here.
We don't know if Sam Pittman will be here. I mean, coaching changes happen all the time. So it's something that's making news today. Then it's going to die down, and it'll be talked about, but it's not going to become a big deal to 2025.
I'm going to tell you, I've had a lot of text messages from people, and I'm sure you have too, with messages. Just, there were so many people who never thought this was going to happen, that all it was talk, that Arkansas and Arkansas State playing on a football field was just a pipe dream, and it was never going to come to fruition. And I know today is a big day for a lot of people who wanted to see it happen.
Well, I thought it was going to happen because Hunter Yurachek had indicated that earlier when he first announced, that Arkansas was going to start playing in-state schools in some of the other sports. He indicated then that, yes, it's coming in football. It's just a matter of when it happens. And he talked about being friends with Arkansas State's AD. The guy had been talking to him for a long time about this. A lot of people are going to say, this is 2021. You don't have to do this thing based on 1975 standards. And they may well be right. I just keep going back to what I said before. The argument that Frank always had, which he got from, his boss when he got here, John Barnhill, was that, and Barnhill, let's give Barnhill credit because he's the guy that right after World War II took a guy from in-state who'd been a good player, had played 1 year for the Naval Academy, and I'm talking about, name escapes me now, but he's brought him back from there, and he was a galvanizing player for all over the state. People knew him. He married Miss Arkansas. That became a big deal. And all of a sudden, Arkansas, Clyde Smackover Scott, it slipped my mind for a minute.
There you go.
But that became it made Arkansas kind of a statewide thing. And he said, okay, we've got this now. We're not going to give it up. We don't want to be what happens with Oklahoma State. We don't want what happens between Auburn and Alabama. We're a smaller state. We don't want to split things like that. So we want to not play these other teams. And it was a little bit unrealistic because Frank always said, and I don't know if he really believed this or not, but he always said, we want our fans to root for them and they'll root for us. Well, come on. That's probably not realistic. But that was what they were hoping for, is you don't divide the state. You don't play each other so their fans are not mad at you and your fans are not mad at them and all that stuff. That's just not realistic anymore. And it is going to be interesting once the game is played. There's just no way of knowing what's going to come, what will come out of that.
I just like it when you do your Frank Burrows impersonation.
I wish he was still around.
It's just great. It's great to hear it when it comes out. But yeah, again, that's the news today. If you want to read more about some of the other changes that are happening to War Memorial Stadium, including the fact that the UAPB game is going to be moved to War Memorial this year. Arkansas and Missouri will play in Fayetteville at the end of the 2021 season. All those details are over on our website, and you can go read up on that. And of course, we're also going to be live throughout the night talking about this, continuing to give our thoughts and opinions, hear from you guys, hear your thoughts and opinions. Sam Pittman set to be on Paul Feinbaum here in about 25 minutes. So we'll see what Sam Pittman has to say as well about it all. But thanks so much for joining us on this broadcast. Of course, I know we got a lot of comments and we always appreciate those. And, again, thank you so much for watching. For Mike Irwin, I'm Melissa Orange. Have a great rest of your day.